This isn't just a story. It's the kind that'll echo in your mind long after you've heard it. If you're ready for a truth that blindsided everyone, hit that subscribe button. And if any of this resonates with you, give this video a like and share your thoughts in the comments. Stories like these deserve to be heard. Christmas dinner was winding down. My dad put down his fork, his gaze locking onto mine. "You're a burden, Hannah," he stated, his voice chillingly calm. "You can't stay here anymore." For a fleeting second, I thought I'd misheard. My mom offered a nervous, forced laugh, as if to dismiss it as a dark joke. But my father didn't laugh. He just waited, his eyes challenging me to break. The room fell into an unnerving silence. My younger sister, Sophie, froze mid-bite, her fork suspended in the air. I took a breath, placed my own fork down, and felt every muscle in my body coil with tension. I was the one who paid for the electricity, the heat, the very food on their plates. Without me, this house wouldn't even have running water. And here they were, on Christmas night, casting me out as if I meant nothing. I didn't respond immediately. I was afraid that if I opened my mouth, I'd either shatter or erupt. My dad leaned back, a subtle smirk playing on his lips, as if confessing this was some kind of personal victory. "I've given this a lot of thought," he said, his tone devoid of emotion. "You've overstayed your welcome. It's time for you to move out." My mom shifted uncomfortably, but remained silent. That silence was a heavier blow than his words. "I'm 24. I have a stable job. I could have moved out ages ago, but I stayed because they needed me. I've been covering the electric bill, the internet, most of the groceries. I'm the reason this house is even warm in the dead of winter." "You're not a burden," Sophie blurted out. Her voice was a trembling whisper, but I heard it loud and clear. My dad shot her a sharp glare. "Stay out of it." Sophie's eyes widened, filled with fear as they flickered towards me. She's 16, still in high school. If they could discard me so easily, what future did that hold for her? I took a slow, deliberate breath, pushing down the rising heat in my chest. "All right," I finally managed. My dad's smirk widened, mistaking my compliance for confirmation of his righteousness. My mom continued to pick at her mashed potatoes, her eyes fixed on her plate. I stood, gathered my dishes, and carried them to the sink. Sophie remained frozen, her hands clasped in her lap. I offered her a small, almost imperceptible nod, a silent promise that I was okay, even though I wasn't. I didn't stay for the rest of the meal. I retreated to my room and shut the door. My hands were shaking, but my mind was made up. If they wanted me gone, so be it. But they weren't prepared for the true meaning of my departure. They would lose the bills I paid, the stability I provided, and I wasn't going to give them a warning. I pulled my suitcase from the closet and began packing in the quiet solitude of my room. Downstairs, I could hear muffled voices. My mom's soft and hesitant, my dad's sharp and definitive. An hour later, a soft knock sounded at my door. Sophie slipped inside, quickly closing it behind her. Her eyes were red. "What the hell was that?" she whispered. "I don't know," I replied, shoving my laptop into my bag. "But I'm leaving tomorrow." "That's insane," she insisted. "You pay for everything. They can't even afford food without you." "Not my problem anymore," I said, the words tasting like ash. She bit her lip, her gaze searching mine. "Where are you going?" "I'll figure it out," I said. "I have some savings. Maybe I can stay with Claire for a bit until I find a place." Sophie hesitated, then started. "Can I?" She stopped herself. the unspoken plea hanging in the air. She wanted to come with me. You know they'd never let that happen, I told her gently. She looked down, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. Yeah. I zipped my suitcase. You're going to be okay. Just keep your head down. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You're going to regret this. I managed to smile, though it held no trace of humor. I know. The next morning, I woke before anyone else. The house was still and cold, a biting chill that seemed to seep into your very bones. I moved quietly, determined to avoid another confrontation. I hauled my bags downstairs, each creaking floorboard a testament to the weight I was carrying. I didn't look around. The living room held too many memories of the years I'd spent keeping this place afloat. Outside, the crisp air stung my cheeks. I loaded my car in silence, shutting the trunk with a definitive click. Before I left, I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and began systematically severing ties. Electricity, internet, water, Netflix, all of it under my name. All of it canceled. Without me, they'd have about 3 weeks before everything went dark. I slid into the driver's seat, took one last look at the house, and felt nothing. No sadness, no regret, just a profound sense of relief. Seattle was 3 hours north. My best friend, Claire, lived in a cramped one-bedroom apartment, but she'd been unwavering when I called the night before. Her smile when she opened the door was warm and genuine, a stark contrast to the emotional climate I'd left behind. You're staying here as long as you need, she said, pulling me inside. Her couch sagged in the middle. Her dog, Charlie, regarded me with unwavering curiosity, and her roommate politely inquired 3 separate times if I planned to become a permanent fixture. But none of that mattered. For the first time in years, no one was watching me, expecting me to provide. 3 days later, my phone began to buzz insistently. 7 missed calls from my mom, 2 from my dad. A rarity, considering he almost never initiated contact. A handful of texts from Sophie. I ignored them all until Sophie's last message illuminated my screen. They're freaking out. The power's been cut off. A grin spread across my face. They honestly thought the bills would magically pay themselves. Then, another message from Sophie. Dad's losing his mind. He says, you did something to the house. I could practically picture him stomping around in the dark, shouting while my mom sobbed about the Wi-Fi being down. An hour later, my mom called again. This time, I answered. Hannah, she began, her voice trembling. We don't know what happened. The power's out. The internet's down. The water bill. I didn't pay it, I stated simply. A heavy silence followed. Then her voice dropped. You paid for these? I almost laughed. Who else did you think was paying for them? She hesitated. Your father said. She stopped herself. I knew exactly what he'd said, that everything would be fine without me, that the house would run itself, a magical testament to his supposed capability. Not my problem anymore, I said, and hung up. I thought that would be the end of it, that they'd figure something out. My dad would finally get a job. My mom would pick up more hours. Maybe they'd even sell some of their possessions. But I was wrong. This wasn't the end. It was merely the beginning. The next morning, I woke to 3 security alerts from my bank. Suspicious login attempt detected. My stomach churned. I opened my laptop and pulled up my account. Nothing had been taken yet, but there it was, a string of failed password resets, each one mere minutes apart. I didn't need a detective to know who was behind it. I grabbed my phone and called Sophie. She answered instantly, her voice a hushed whisper, as if afraid of being overheard. "I was just about to call you," she said. "Dad's been on the computer all morning, slamming the keys like he's trying to break them. He keeps yelling about money." I closed my eyes. "Is he looking for my old passwords?" She hesitated. "Yeah." "You remember how Mom used to keep that little notebook by the desk? He's going through it." Of course, that battered spiral-bound relic contained every password I'd ever created as a teenager, back when I foolishly reused them. I forced a laugh, but it was hollow. "Tell him he's wasting his time." "Hannah," Sophie's voice dropped even lower. "He's saying you ruined us, that you did this on purpose." She trailed off. "And what?" "I think he's going to do something stupid." Her words sent a prickle of unease down my spine. "What do you mean?" "He's pacing, slamming doors. Mom's crying, trying to calm him down, but he's not listening. He keeps saying you're not going to get away with this." I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, my pulse thrumming in my temples. I'd anticipated guilt trips, perhaps even pleas, but outright revenge? That was a new, unsettling territory. "Lock your door," I instructed. "If he tries anything crazy, call me right away." "Hannah, promise me." "I promise." The moment we hung up, I changed every password I had: bank accounts, email, streaming services, even my Amazon login. Then I called my bank and reported the attempted hacking. They locked my account down so securely that even I had trouble logging in for a few hours. By the time I gained access again, the burning in my chest had subsided, but a persistent unease remained. I thought I'd cut them off cleanly. I thought I could simply walk away, but my father wasn't going to let me go that easily. It was 3 nights later when the pounding started. Claire and I were engrossed in some trashy reality show when someone began banging on the apartment door with such force that the picture frames rattled. She muted the TV. "Expecting someone?" "No." My stomach plummeted. I already knew. Another bang, this one even harder. Then a voice, deep and furious. "Hannah, open the door." Claire's eyes widened. "Is that your dad?" I stood up slowly, every muscle in my body taut. I peered through the peephole. There he was, James, standing in the hallway, fists clenched, his breathing heavy like a bull about to charge. "Hannah," he barked again. "You think you can just walk away from this?" I stepped back from the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. "Should I call the cops?" Claire asked, her voice a mix of concern and trepidation. "Yes," I said without hesitation. My voice emerged colder than I'd intended. She was already dialing as he slammed his fist against the door. "You owe us. You don't get to run off and leave us to starve." I kept my distance, phone in hand, listening as Claire gave the dispatcher our address. 2 minutes later, the faint wail of sirens cut through his shouting. The pounding stopped. I heard the scuff of boots against the hallway carpet. Then another knock, this one calm and authoritative. "Police, open up." Claire opened the door just enough to allow them entry. 2 officers moved past us into the hallway. "Sir, step back," one of them said firmly. James turned, his face flushed, his chest heaving. "She's my daughter. She thinks she can ruin us." "Sir, you need to leave the property," the officer interrupted. James's eyes darted over their shoulders, locking onto mine. "Pure hatred. You did this." I didn't flinch. The officers cuffed him right there in the hallway, his voice echoing as they led him away. "You'll regret this, Hannah." When the door finally closed, the silence was deafening. Claire looked at me as if seeing me for the first time. "Holy crap," she breathed softly. "That was intense." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "It's not over." And I was right. It was Sophie who informed me first. I was making coffee in Claire's tiny kitchen when my phone buzzed. A text from her. "Mom's selling your stuff." I froze, the coffee cup halfway to the counter. "What stuff?" I typed back. Her reply came swiftly. "Your laptop? Your old camera? Even your car?" I actually laughed at first. It seemed too preposterous. "My car's here," I wrote. A pause. "Wait, no, it's not." "It's in our driveway." 15 minutes later, I was on the road back to Portland. The closer I got, the tighter my grip on the steering wheel became. When I pulled up, my stomach dropped. My car was indeed there. The driver's seat was pushed back, the glove compartment open, the gas tank nearly empty. I barely had time to step out before the front door swung open. Patricia stood there, arms crossed, her voice sharp. "You called the cops on your father. You stole my car." "I didn't steal it," I shot back. She scoffed. "It was just sitting there. You weren't using it." "It's my car, Mom. How did you even get it?" Her eyes flickered for a fraction of a second, enough for me to know she'd used the spare key I'd carelessly forgotten she possessed. "Give me the key," I said, my voice low. She didn't move. "If you don't, I'll call the police again." Her jaw tightened. Then, without a word, she stormed inside. A minute later, she returned, tossing the key at my chest. It fell into the grass. "Happy?" "No," I said flatly, stepping past her into the house. Sophie was in the hallway, looking pale. "She took your laptop," she whispered, "and pawned it." I closed my eyes, counted to 3. When I opened them, my phone was already in my pocket. Patricia's head snapped toward me. "Don't you dare!" "Yes, I'd like to report stolen property," I told the dispatcher, staring directly at her, the color draining from her face. "You can't do this to me. I'm your mother." "You already did it to yourself," I said. When the officers arrived, I handed them Sophie's statement, proof of purchase, and detailed precisely which pawn shop had my laptop. They led Patricia outside in handcuffs as neighbors peeked through their blinds. She was crying, screaming about being a struggling mother. I stood in the doorway and watched, silent. Sophie came to stand beside me. "This is really happening, isn't it?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "It is." The next morning, my phone buzzed before I was even out of bed. An unfamiliar number. A single message. "You're going to regret this." I stared at it for a full 10 seconds before it clicked. James. Someone had bailed him out. Likely one of his old drinking buddies or a distant relative who hadn't heard the full story. I called Sophie immediately. "He's out," she said, her voice tight. "Mom's losing it. She's crying one second and screaming the next. And Dad," she trailed off. "What about him?" "He said he's coming for you." I didn't waste a second. "Stay inside. Lock your door. Call me if anything happens." Then I drove straight to the house. The police officers from the day before were still outside, finishing up paperwork on Patricia's arrest. "Can I go in and get the rest of my things?" I asked. One of them nodded. "As long as your sister's okay with it." Sophie was already moving toward the stairs. "Let's make it quick." We worked fast. Clothes, old books, even random items I'd left behind, thinking I'd return for them someday. Not anymore. I was hauling the last box to my car when I saw headlights. A dark sedan turned onto the street and rolled toward us. My chest tightened. James pulled into the driveway, slammed the door, and started toward me with that same bull-like fury I'd witnessed at Claire's apartment. I put the box down and stood my ground. "You come near me," I said, my voice carrying over the cold air, "and I'll file a restraining order." His hands curled into fists. "You think you're better than us?" I smiled, not out of amusement, but because I knew it rattled him. "I know I am." For a moment, I thought he might swing at me, right there in front of the cops, but one of the officers stepped forward. "Sir, you need to leave the premises." James glared at me one last time, then stomped back to his car. He peeled out of the driveway, tires squealing. I loaded the last box into my trunk and slammed it shut. Sophie stood on the porch, arms wrapped around herself. "I don't want to stay here," she said quietly. "I know," I told her. "2 more years, you can do it." Her eyes were glassy, but she nodded. "Call me when you get home." I got into my car, the engine rumbling beneath me. Patricia was still crying in the driveway, shouting my name as if that would change anything. I didn't look back. As I pulled away, I knew this wasn't just the end of a fight. This was the end of us. I didn't stop driving until the city lights of Portland were nothing but a fading glow in my rearview mirror. When I finally pulled into Claire's apartment lot, the exhaustion hit me all at once. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. I went upstairs, dropped the last box of my belongings in her living room, and stood there for a moment, staring at it. Everything I owned reduced to a few battered cardboard boxes. And yet, I felt lighter than I had in years. That night, I made it official. I blocked both of my parents' numbers. I deleted them from every social media account. I changed my bank passwords again, updated my mailing address, and set up a P.O. box so nothing could find its way back to them. The next morning, I found a small studio apartment for rent just a few miles away from Claire's place. It wasn't much, just one room, a tiny kitchen, and a view of the alley, but it was mine. No shouting through thin walls, no slammed doors, no one standing over me, demanding I fix their messes. Sophie called me from her friend's phone later that night. "They're acting like nothing happened," she said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Dad's pretending he never got arrested. Mom's telling people you just left on bad terms." "Let them," I said. "If it makes them feel better, let them lie." She was quiet for a moment. 2 more years, she whispered. "You can do it," I told her, "and when you turn 18, I'll be there." When we hung up, I sat in my new apartment, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. It wasn't home yet, but it was safe, and for now, that was enough. 2 years can change everything. Sophie turned 18 last spring. The day after her birthday, she stuffed her clothes into 2 duffel bags, grabbed the little savings she'd hidden away, and walked out. She moved in with a friend from school, then headed off to college that fall. I helped her furnish her dorm, bought her a secondhand laptop, and hugged her so tight she laughed. "You're free now," I told her. James and Patricia didn't fare as well. They lost the house within a year of me leaving. The bank took it after they fell behind on payments. They couldn't keep up without my assistance. From what Sophie told me, they bounced between cheap rentals, burning through what little goodwill they had left with family and old friends. Eventually, they landed in a rundown apartment in a part of town you wouldn't walk through at night. They tried to reach me over the years. A Facebook message from an account with no profile picture. an envelope with no return address, a text from an unknown number. Can we talk? I never responded because I still remembered that Christmas night. The way my father's voice didn't waver when he told me I was a burden. The way my mother looked down at her plate instead of speaking up for me. They made their choice, and I made mine. And if you think this story hit deep, the next one will leave you speechless. Subscribe now before you miss it. And if this made you feel something, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. I've focused on using stronger verbs, more evocative language, and varying sentence structure to create a more dynamic narrative flow. The goal was to enhance the emotional impact of each moment while staying true to the original content. Let me know what you think.